For days, hundreds of my paintings have been scrambling my brain. Now, at last, a glimpse of heaven. It has taken me hours to crawl from my sick bed into this patch of sunlight. And my mind is pacified by my sketches, those impressions that will make me immortal. The sun, the fundamental source of light and life and my inspiration, has been absent all December from the dull Chelsea skies. There was a time when my painted suns became white hot, and Ruskin complained that they were too dazzling to look at. I ought to look back at my life with great satisfaction. With little schooling or art training, my work was of such excellence that it was exhibited at the Royal Academy. I was only 15. This was without precedent. But if success could come so quickly, I feared I could instantly become unpopular and never earn another farthing. What then would become of me and old Dad? It was he who started me off by displaying and selling my drawings in his barber shop. Dear old Dad helped me all my life, not just with his incessant labours preparing materials in my studio, but by his constant encouragement, something I never got from the Royal Academy that failed to nurture me. When my real mother went mad and died in the asylum, I feared the same could happen to me. Dear Dad comforted me with this amazing story. I was born on St. George's Day, the same as Shakespeare. 4 days later, on a crisp, bright morning, a mysterious phenomenon occurred. 3 suns shone in the sky. Ruskin said that is why I said the sun is God. I never said that. It would have been a blasphemy. He has a vivid imagination, and just as he sees more in my paintings than are there, he hears things that have not been said. The fact of the matter is that when I first saw Claude Lorraine's depiction of the sun, I cried. I was certain I could never surpass that. A time came when I no longer cried when I revisited his works. As part of my lifelong self-education and looking for ideas for a poem to accompany a new painting, I came across this in Shakespeare's Henry VI. Edward, dazzle mine eyes, or do I see 3 suns? Richard, 3 glorious suns, each one a perfect sun, not separated with the racking clouds, but severed in a pale, clear shining sky, a portent for 2 Shakespearean characters, and indeed a portent for me. I have always travelled my own road, driven to become the greatest painter ever. After that encounter with Claude, that epiphany, I knew I would have to excel in all genres. So I made religious, mythological, symbolic and history paintings, along with seascapes, landscapes, cityscapes and interiors. I fathered all these children in an attempt to gain acceptance by society. The establishment considered history paintings and portraiture to be the highest form of art. Landscapes were of little value, low art. Well, this low-born painter will change all that, I said to myself, and I did. The secret of my success? Damned hard work. In my studio I would line up several canvases, load my brush, then apply that colour to each picture in turn. I was a veritable factory worker. But I mainly worked outdoors. The story that did the rounds is that I had myself lashed to the mast of a ship, so I would know how to paint my storm at sea. Was this Ruskin trying to build me up once again with more humbug? Asked why I did not paint portraits, except the one I did of myself around 1799, I said who would believe such an ugly person as me could paint beautiful women? What they did not know is that I have always made studies of the human form. I never showed them because they would not be understood by prudish society. When Ruskin informed me that my detractors say I do landscapes because I cannot do figures, I showed him dozens of intimate drawings of women, including the actress Sarah Danby. He almost swooned at their nakedness. He considered me mad or depraved. An amusing story is that on his wedding night he was horrified, repulsed, to see his wife had pubic hair. He thought all women looked like the smooth marble classical sculptures. I consider women to be superior in all qualities, endowments, faculties, and abilities. When Napoleon was finally defeated at Waterloo back in 1815, I was able to return to the continent. I travelled by coach to Paris, to Switzerland, to Rome and onwards. I was working from nature, observing, sketching, even from the coach windows. After visiting Waterloo, I made a large oil of the battle. I painted the eternal truths, the slaughter, agonies, horror, hellishness. No chauvinistic formations of our redcoats with their fleeting glory. No Wellington, no heroes. I made people weep. My second epiphany was in Venice, Venezia la Serenissima, where the elements of water and air converged under the hot sun of southern Europe to create a new light. Light flows from God's Spirit. As a spirit is immaterial, I sought to eliminate solid objects from my painting. They were not essential. I discovered a new way of seeing, colour not form, heart memory not brain memory. Tired of representation, tired of form and line, I wanted to express my feelings, my spirituality, my inner state, not my outer state. And it was all there in my work, all there in front of my very eyes. I realized my so-called sketches were, in fact, finished works, not rapid notes for future work in the studio, not studies. They were finished works of art. I determined to abstain from my tincture of thornapple. Hallucinations became feverish incoherence. I feared it was incompatible with the spirituality expressed in my works. I see now why Venice became my spiritual home. I was born and brought up close to the Thames. I love the changing water, the noise, the loading and unloading of vessels, the exotic smells of spices. But England was grey in comparison with the vivid colours of Venice. It is the Thames at Chelsea where I now hide out with Mrs. Booth. No one has been able to discover my whereabouts since I abandoned my decrepit studio. Too feeble to row myself, I hired boatmen so I could work on the water. Unable to eat without any teeth, I lived on brandy and milk, which they eyed greedily. I once tried to pay for their services with one of my watercolours, but they refused. They were unaware of how much they could sell them for. They did accept a pencil drawing of a naked young woman, and were then eager for me to hire them regularly. They were unaware of who I was. At first they asked me how I made my money, and laughed when I told them from painting. They thought me a pirate or privateer, and only knew me as Admiral Booth, retired. They considered me a rum fella. I lost interest in my so-called mother, the Royal Academy. She never took me into her arms or even accepted me. Instead, she called me an uncouth Cockney son of a barber. Me, the Cockney Canaletto. I almost lost interest in my lifetime finished works. They never turned out as good as I imagined them. Most had been sold and reproduced in quantity to make my fortune. Some have not been sold and are spoiling. In order to keep my work intact and my legacy to the nation, I bought back some of my best finished paintings at auction. One in particular, my darling child from 1839, the Fighting Temeraire, I would never sell. Another, Dido building Carthage, in which I equalled Claude, I have ordered to be my shroud when I am buried. The patch of sunlight has moved away from me. I am feeling cold. Everything is fading,